Hi, I'm Dr. Lawrence Woods, and a common question I get is how do I sit if I have SI joint or sacroiliac joint pain? And now, sacroiliac joint pain is really annoying. It's awful. If you have this, you really need to listen to what I'm about to say, because I've literally treated thousands of patients who have this, and I'm going to give you the recommendations that I gave them to you right now. Let's start with the SI joint. What is the SI joint? The SI joint, if we look at the pelvis, the base of the spine down here, it comprises of three bones. So we have this triangular bone here called the sacrum, and we have these two iliums on the left and right side. And the SI joint is the joint that articulates the sacrum with the ilium here. Now, the SI joints are in an oblique orientation. So when you walk, they kind of rotate in this kind of fashion here like that, right? And that's going to be really important to understand that as we move on in this video to explain on tips on how to prevent any pain in those areas there, okay? So let's start with the basics. When we sit, especially if SI joints, alignment is critical. You don't want one hip back and one hip forward. You want to make sure that you're sitting in perfect alignment, meaning that your knees and your feet are shoulder width apart and your feet are pointing straight ahead and your feet are on the ground. I see a lot of people who have SI joint, they tuck one leg underneath or they cross their legs, and all these positions are going to exacerbate the SI joint, because again, you're going to create a rotation in the pelvis and it's going to cause a flare-up of those ligaments. So we want to make sure you're sitting in alignment. That's very critical. Number two, if you have a SI joint pain, you should consider getting up and moving a lot. And my recommendation for my patients is at least every 30 minutes, get up and move, okay? And the reason for that is because you don't want to get stuck in these complacent patterns, because let's say if you're in a complacent pattern, even if you're in the right posture, you can get stuck in neutral. And so you want your body to actively and consciously adapt, and through movement, it's critical to keep movement. And there's tons of studies, there's over 10,000 studies, I believe, linking these poor posture issues to chronic pain like SI joint pain. So movement is always a key factor here. Number three with SI joint pain is that you want to make sure always that your hips are above your knees. And I found this to be critical. Let me explain why, if you have SI joint pain, your hips should always be above your knees. So let's start with a natural, let me start again. So let's start with just an ordinary chair, in this case a kitchen chair, for example, because I'm sure most of you might be using this at home. And most chairs have 90 degrees, 90 degrees, 90 degrees, and we're all told that that's the way you should sit. Well, if you are sitting on a chair like this, I believe it's going to really make your SI joint pain worse. So what I recommend is to sit with your hips above your knees. And let me explain why that's critical. When you sit at 90, 90, 90, your pelvis, your ilium, these two bones here, rotate back, and that creates your low back to go in the y-axis like very straight, very vertical. And that it's putting a lot of stress on those SI joints, and it's putting a lot of stress on the discs and the joints. So in other words, when you're sitting, let me just show you. When we're sitting at 90, 90, 90, as you can see, I'm slumping forward, my shoulders rounding forward. I'm not using any of my muscles, but I'm using my hips and my spine to support my weight. And over time, it's just going to make my SI joint pains worse. When we include a cushion or a wedge to keep those hips above those knees, what that does, it tilts the pelvis forward, puts my spine back into a neutral posture. Notice that my ears are over my shoulders, my hips, and what this does, it pulls up on those pelvic floor muscles, engages those muscles, and disperses the weight back into my muscles and takes the pressure away from my SI joints. And it feels lovely to sit like this. I don't know how you can get out there, sit at 90, 90, 90, especially for SI joint pains. Now, let me explain a couple things I found that are critical to look for if you want to sit this way. So as you can imagine, being a doctor, and over almost 30 years now, recommended to my patients to sit like this. I would say have them go online, and I find products and we order it, and it's very frustrating because they would come back and none of it worked. I found that nothing really worked. And the reason being is that I found that statistically every cushion out there was made out of like dirt cheap plastic, memory foam or polyurethane foam, which is essentially the same value as a kitchen sponge. They didn't hold you in place, and it just got expensive, and it was just a waste of time. It was just taking money and just throwing out the window of your car. So what I recommend, if you're going to sit in this position, the best way to sit is make sure your seat cushion has two layers. The base layer needs to be a poly foam layer, And that's critical because that's got to hold this position. It can't bottom out. It's got to hold that angle for you to create this neutral posture in your spine. The top layer needs to be a softer foam. And now I found the best foam in the world to be natural latex. And natural latex is great. I mean, I don't think there's anything out there better than natural latex for a lot of reasons. First of all, it's natural. But second of all, it's very, very comfortable. And lastly, it has a thing called resilience. And that's just what we, in technical terms, when we're as designers, is the springiness. And the springiness is what keeps your body moving, and it pushes back, so you're not getting trapped, you're not sinking down to the seat, you're not sinking hot, which is another point, because most plastic foams or polyurethane memory foams are made of basically petrochemicals, and they're very hot, where natural latex is not. It's made from a tree sap of a rubber tree, and so it's actually cooler to sit on. Okay, and so I find it's the absolute, if you're going to get a seat cushion, do it right, get 2 layers, the bottom polyfoam base, top layer soft latex, okay? And the density is roughly between 85 and 95D, if you want to get technical. Now, none of it matters if the cover's not right. And the cover needs to be what we call, in engineering, isotropic. And that means it should stretch in 4 dimensions. If it only stretched in 1 dimension, it doesn't matter what's below this, it's not going to work. So to get the benefit, the value of the foam, you need to have a top material that stretches in 4 dimensions. Therefore, you're increasing your surface area. It's much more comfortable, okay? And it allows the foam to do its job the way it's supposed to. The bottom of your cushion should be non-slip. And that's critical because a lot of times you get these foams, I say cheap memory foams or plastic, and they slip all over the place. And you put it on your kitchen chair and it's out here, and it's falling off the chair. You want your seat cushion to grip, okay? And so it has to hold you in place. And another critical point is that wherever you go, you want to make sure you're sitting in alignment and you're sitting comfortable. Okay, so it should be portable and transportable. Let's say if you're driving to work and you get to work and you get to your office and let's say you want to go to dinner, or if you want to take a flight, or if you want to watch a movie, wherever you go, you're sitting in comfort and you're sitting in alignment. So these are the points I think that are critical, and I think you're going to really appreciate this advice.